I'm ready.
All right. And we are live with our 31st installment of Nansen Office Hours. I think we're live. Hold on, let me double check.
Okay.
How we doing this week, Alex?
Yeah, can't complain. I've not managed to hang up the banner. The banner is like lying on the table behind me, which is a bit pathetic. But one day I'll be able to hang it back up again, or even get a permanent Nansen logo on the wall.
I think we need a neon sign back there or something a bit more catchy.
Yeah, I agree. Neon would be pretty cool. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little distracted right now as I try and figure out this Damien Hirst drop that's happening in an hour. Um,
Yeah, why don't
so I'm
you give
pretty,
us a little brief on that? What's happening? Do you want to
uh,
share your screen, by the way, if there's some website or something to look at?
sure. Let me pull it up. Damien Hirst.
So while Daniel is getting that ready, we have a very nice background today. Suzu telling you to get a Numsen account, do some real chain analysis, and get educated. You heard it from the best, from the man himself. Um, just a little Twitter interaction there, friendly, all good fun. Um, and we couldn't resist putting it here in the background because the legend himself telling you to get a Nansen account.
All right, can you see my
Epic.
screen?
I can see your screen.
Cool. So Damien Hirst, which for context, for anyone who doesn't know, myself included, not that long ago. I'm not pretending to be an art aficionado, but he is the one of the highest grossing artists, if not the highest living grossing artist. But very much focused on the trad art or traditional art space up until now. He's doing a one of 10,000 drop, or like each one is kind of unique in this 10,000 NFT collection. And for anyone who's been playing the NFT game for the past whatever, like month, 2 months, 3 months, this is an interesting potential validation of these. Well, I think they're already kind of validated, or at least it's a fun game. Everyone's enjoying it, but this is the first mega artist coming into the space to do a collection. And so, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to watch. Each one of these pieces is $2,000 times 10,000. So this collection is going for like 20 mil. So it's unlikely that it'll go immediately, unlike some of the other avatar drops. Um, but yeah, kind of DYOR. I'm not endorsing it or recommending it, but I think it is an interesting one, slightly more unique than the other ones we're seeing. Also, each of these pieces is redeemable for a physical art piece. So back in 2016, I guess he says he made this collection of 10,000. And so, yeah, it'll be kind of interesting. And it's one of these projects that bridges the physical and digital art space.
And we
I'm
don't
not,
really we don't really know much about the mechanics of the sale, right? So there's the website penny.com, right?
yeah,
But it doesn't really specify like how you actually ape in.
yeah. It's through
So
Palm. I think this is the first like large collection dropped by Palm, which is
okay.
um, I think
Ooh, it
like
says go
akin.
to Palm there. Should we maybe that's
Let's
where the
see.
sale's happening or interesting. We're figuring out this stuff live. I don't know if you can see the chat, maybe someone already knows how to do this stuff, but
All we see is simp here.
nice. I think that's referring to me.
All right. Well, we'll figure it out. Hopefully, in I've got some friends who are looking into it, so hopefully we'll have an update at some point.
Cool.
And without
So,
further ado, I'll pass over the screen to you.
yeah. So let me share my screen. Um, Probably do my window here. Let's see. Boom. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah. I'm
So
going to take
we
off
were
this
just
background.
okay. We were just talking about NFTs. So what better place to start than at the NFT section of Nonsen? NFT Paradise, which is kind of at this point, at least for me, it's kind of like the landing page for NFTs. So you can see what people are aping into. This just shows the kind of hottest NFT collections in the last 24 hours, by default ranked by traded volume in Ether. But there are a few other metrics here that you can look at as well, like an inferred market cap in Ether, a max price, an average price, and a floor price or min price, and also number of transactions. So, for example, if you sort it by number of transactions here, you see this Fame Lady Squad. And actually, when you sort by volume, you also see it as the third largest one. So maybe that's something to look at, because it was issued, or the contract was deployed 46 hours ago. So it's a new project. And I'm just going to show you some of the stuff that you can pick up. Actually, I've not looked at this myself.
This one pumped massively overnight.
Oh, yeah. So I have my notes from our analysts who are gracious enough to help us prepare a bit for these office hour sessions. And so I'm going to read up some of the stuff that they gave me. It's not because we're getting paid by this project to do advertising, but just if it sounds a bit monotonous, it's because the guys have prepared it.
And
so
for
this
context,
is a collection.
that was an accusation we got a while back, because we were reading out the notes and someone was like, "Did you get paid for that?" No.
Yeah, and we never get paid for any of these projects that we show, of course, on office hours. Obviously, sometimes we do ape into them. And we are typically transparent about that. I personally have not aped into this one. Daniel, are you comfortable sharing if you've aped into this one?
I skipped it partly because
Okay.
I'm a bit tired of avatar projects,
Okay.
and also because they had leaked the metadata, whether or not on purpose. I think it was on purpose, but basically, like you could see the rarities before you rolled them, like you could see what was kind of coming up when you were minting it. So,
right.
But I think regardless of that, it got some good traction on Twitter, and then enough people aped in.
Yeah. So it's basically a collection of 8,888 unique lady NFTs on Ethereum. 5% of the sales are going to charity to fight against violence against women. And the project, or the contract, was, as we just mentioned, launched 2 days ago. The minting price was 0.05 Ether, and it was fully sold out within a day. So what can you see when you look at this in NFT God mode? Well, you can see the days of trading, and you can actually see that the price, the average price has basically gone up. That's the average price. But if you wanted to look at, for example, the different ranges here, looks like the max price has been going up quite a bit. The average price has gone up a bit, but the mint price, it appears to actually be going down. Maybe someone sold something for a ridiculously low price, it looks like here. Not sure why. You can scroll down and you can...
That happens when people fat finger all the time. Like and so there's... I mean, maybe we should get rid of outliers in this data.
It's probably this guy, for example. It might be. So you can. I mean, the data's there, right? But it's true. Maybe it should be, without the fat fingers. Although it's not trivial to say what's a fat finger, what's not. But I think when you scroll down, like, you can get that perspective. What's the actual trend? And to me, it looks like the real floor price is around 0.15 maybe right now. And these ones are outliers. So you can see that right away, and you can see the slowly moving average is, generally moving upwards. You can see the total transactions here. You can also see the number of unique buyers, which is very important for NFTs, because typically you don't have that many NFTs in each collection. So one thing that I often look at is just the number of holders. So if you have 8,888 NFTs in the collection, obviously you can never have more than 8,888 addresses. So the closer this number gets to that limit, the more bullish it is, I would say. Of course, it could be gamed and manipulated, but that's at least how I think about it. Um, you can also look at, the breakdown and see if there are any sort of notable um, collectors who have been picking up these tokens. You see some OpenSea names here, which makes it pretty easy for some people to recognize collectors that they know of. You can see that Cadboros is the top holder with 321 NFTs. Looks like they received all these NFTs and they didn't send any of them. They're just hodling. Debra.eth has 300. Metals Vault has 206, etc. So this gives a pretty good overview of like who's actually buying these different tokens. Yeah, so that's one way to use NFT God mode. Like you start with the discovery of looking at NFT Paradise, where you can see, hey, this is a new project, and then you can do the due diligence that you want by drilling down and looking at the actual metrics, and it just makes you a bit more informed when you're considering aping into stuff.
So I think it's important to note like how you play these drops, or like what is the kind of strategy when approaching these. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but the simplest one is literally just to buy floor pieces, meaning like the ones at the absolute lowest price. And it's a bet that the collection as a whole will go up in value. So here we saw the mint price was like 0.05, and right now the floor price is 0.15. So if you minted it and you're selling it now at the absolute lowest price, you've made a 3x. So that's kind of like the simplest strategy. And so like if you're new to NFTs and like just getting in and you're thinking like, oh, well, these are different. What are the different attributes that matter? There is a more sophisticated game you can play with NFTs where those attributes do matter, and like you should pay attention to that. But the simplest version is just to buy floor ones and then flip them at a higher price. And this is not financial advice, not an endorsement of doing this. I'm just saying like that is to kind of demystify what the game is that's going on. And so
Yeah.
if you think of so for the past, I don't know, couple months, at least a month, it's NFTs have been going crazy, especially these collection pieces. And if you rewind back to like DeFi summer, where you could kind of just punt on any shitcoin, and because it was a bull market, like everything was going up, and you just buy it and sell it. That's kind of a lot of what's going on right now. It's not necessarily like sophisticated collectors or anything like that. It's like, oh, I think cats are cool, and I think people are going to buy them. Let me buy a cat, and then it goes up 2x, and then you dump it. So, if you're trying to like calculate, there's not really a great portfolio tracker for NFTs, or not one that I've seen. I'd love if anyone has any recommendations, please share. But like, if you want to calculate the portfolio value of your NFTs, you can basically say like, I have 10 Fame Lady squads. The price right now is 0.17. So my kind of ETH value of Fame Lady squad is 1.7 ETH right now. And I bought at like if you bought 10, I bought at 0.5. So, that's kind of like how you would track the value of your NFT portfolio. It's not necessarily about like specific ones or like, higher value ones. Although as you get more sophisticated, you will figure that out. But it can be that simple of just like floor price times volume.
We're actually working on a feature, since you mentioned your portfolio. We're working on this feature. I don't know if you can see it, but we are going to have NFT gains showed in Wallet Profiler. So you can see like what you've spent or invested on NFTs, what you've grossed, and what you've realized in gains, and like the percentage gains on that. Of course, that doesn't capture the stuff you were talking about. What's the value of your current NFT portfolio? Maybe that's something we should add. But of course, then you have to estimate it, because every NFT is illiquid. You have to use like a floor price or something like that. But yeah, we have some features coming up that will touch on those points too. That's really cool. I like that you break it down like that. So that's NFTs. There are a few other projects going on, some farming, for example. So maybe one thing we could talk about that our analysts spotted is Saddle. So Saddle D4 pool. This is a liquidity pool consisting entirely of four different permissionless decentralized stablecoins: ALUSD or Alchemix USD, FEI, Frax, and LUSD or Liquidity USD. The rewards for this pool went live yesterday. And it has a base APY of 5.5% plus APR of 43% at the time of this writing, so about 50% APR. And there's TVL of around 9 million. Maybe we can see if this takes us to the right place. Saddle Exchange. Would be nice if we could actually see. Okay, so I probably have to connect the wallet, but maybe we can. Oh, here we go. So yeah, it's around 9 mil now. Utilization is 26%, and you see the breakdown of currencies. Now, what you can do with Nansen, I'm happy to drop a link if that's helpful. But this shows the LP tokens that you get out of this. You can deposit them to get rewards, right? That's the yield farming component to it. That's the liquidity mining, the incentives. And this shows the top depositors into the rewards contract of LP tokens. And right away, you see some smart money. TVL.eth, that's a pretty good ENS name. You see a heavy DEX trader, Token Millionaire. You see Gmail.eth, another smart money wallet. And you see a few other ones. Actually, very few though, 59 addresses. And to reiterate, none of the stuff you see here is financial advice or investment advice. I personally have never looked at this before. We're just showing you how you can use Nansen to at least get some information about it. And so there are different things you could do from here, right? You could look at this address, for example. Well, this is just the Etherscan link, but you could plug it into Wallet Profiler. But right away, this to me looks pretty interesting because it's pretty few addresses. It's like 6.5 million tokens, but we don't know the unit of those tokens. But it's probably, in the order of $9.6 million. Presumably most of those will be deposited into the rewards contract. So yeah, that's something that you could look at, Saddle.exchange, and you have these different stable coins that you can add liquidity for.
Do you know if this is capped at like 10 mil? I think in the past they have capped it, but I don't know about this one.
I actually don't know. We could maybe see in the announcement. Let's see if it says anything. I can't see any mention of cap. So, who knows? But it doesn't look like it. I would imagine it would warn you, or maybe the transaction just fails if it's capped, but would be a bit strange. Okay, that's Saddle Finance. Do we have any comments in the YouTube chat?
No.
Apart from me being a simp.
Well, someone said very useful. I'm not sure when they said it. Hopefully during my NFT rant, yeah. But maybe somewhere else.
Good.
Yeah, just for anyone in the audience, feel free to ask any questions, or if you have any projects you want us to look into live here, we're happy to do that.
Yeah.
But as of now, no comments.
Cool. All right. So another project that was highlighted by our eminent analysts.
Sorry. Before we do go into that, a couple things that I would just point out on this one real quick. I always do check first in and do a quick sort there and see who has participated first, just to get a sense of it. And then the second thing I would check out is last out. In this case, it looks like it's completely empty, and that's typically a good sign that a pool is still fresh, especially if none of these people have gone out. So it's not guaranteed that I should go into it, but at the very least, it tells me the opportunity hasn't dried up since everyone's still participating in it.
Yeah. Good points. Okay, so the next thing we can talk about is API3 staking. So API3 aims to build fully decentralized and blockchain native APIs, termed DAPI or DAPI, DAPI probably, which will be set up, managed, insured, and monetized at scale by the API3 DAO. So, staking event. This DAO launched their staking pool on Ethereum mainnet last week, and $130 million worth of API3 tokens were staked in the last 7 days. And the price of the API3 token rose by 35% in the last days as well. So the staking rewards are currently at 47% APY, and they will auto adjust to incentivize at least 50% of total API3 supply to be staked. Currently, about 65% of the target has been met. The first staking rewards will be paid out on July 15th, so that should be tomorrow. And we should note that there is a 1-year vesting schedule on rewards. So that's kind of different from a few other farms that we've seen. Some things we picked up from the on-chain analytics. So that we've seen one smart money depositor in the past day. There's been more than $34 million in inflows in the last day alone. I imagine if we go to hot contracts, we will see this, and we do. API3 staking pool. It's the third biggest still, actually, just in this last hour. And if we sort by 1 day, it's the second biggest one. And look at that one on top. Maybe we can talk about that one afterwards as well. But you see one smart money address aping in, and probably we can look at the top depositors of API3. So this is just the staking pool, which we have the address for here, and then it's the token address of the API3 token plugged in. And this shows the smart money address that we already flagged at hot contracts, but you see a few other addresses here. Some of them re-init deployer. Okay, I'm not sure what that means, to be honest. Elite Dex Trader, Heavy Dex Trader, Blockshop.eth, I can't say this, but it looks like some name. Volatility Protocol deployer. And then a few other ones. That's another smart money wallet there. So it looks like we've spotted at least two. There's another one. 3 smart money wallets here out of, looks like it's a total of 500 addresses that have deposited 34.7 million API3 tokens into this pool. So maybe worth looking at. Again, for those people joining now, this is not investment advice. We're just showing you stuff that has popped up on our radar in Nansen. So definitely have a look at this stuff. There was one more project that showed up in hot contracts. Thorchain.
Wait, hold on. Before we dive into Thorchain. So
okay.
Maybe just like we kind of broke down the strategy for NFTs, what would you say is like the simplest strategy for participating in this? Like, how do most people view something like this when they see API3 staking pool pop up? What is like, why does it matter to someone?
Yeah. So there are a few different scenarios. So let's say that you already hold API3 tokens, right? But you are not actively using them, or you weren't following the project very closely. And now you see, hey, there's a bunch of people sending their API3 tokens into this contract. If I'm that person, I would probably want to figure out, hey, maybe I should do that as well. If I'm already long API3 token and I'm getting yields for it or staking rewards, that's something I want to look into. And so in many of those cases, it's kind of a no-brainer. But of course, there could also be the risk that there will be some kind of hack or there's a vulnerability. So that's when you want to look at who else has been depositing and at least let that serve as information on whether or not you should also ape into this. The other scenario is if you don't have the token, sometimes you can say, hey, this new sort of utility of this token just showed up, and I think it's going to drive demand for this token. And then you might make a bet on that token by buying it. and then potentially also staking it if you want to get rewards in addition. But sometimes you can just buy the token and then it pumps. I remember when I think it was Yam in the pretty much the peak of, or a bit before the peak of DeFi summer, when Yam launched, pretty much all the tokens that they had farms for just pumped. So even if you didn't farm, you could have just bought the token and then you would have gotten pretty wild returns. That doesn't always happen, but like when there is kind of a clear use case or utility or yield generating opportunity, that can sometimes drive the price. So I think that's how I would think about it. Either you have the token, in which case you might just want to stake it, or you want to make a bet on this actually sucking up a lot of the token supply and thereby driving up the price.
Another strategy worth considering if you want to take a more market neutral approach, like let's say you're sitting on stable coins and you don't want to get any exposure to API 3 or like get any serious exposure to it. I don't know if you can borrow API 3 anywhere. I kind of doubt it since it's sort of a longer tail asset. But in the Yam example, like you could have locked up stable coins in Aave and borrowed Maker and then staked Maker. And then one thing to be careful of is as Maker pumps, you could get potentially liquidated. So you do need to keep an eye on it. But at the very least, you're not taking price risk from like Maker itself other than on the liquidations.
Yeah, that's right. So then you're kind of doing like a carry trade, right? You're like borrowing it at a low interest rate and then you're getting paid a higher interest rate by farming with it. I think there are two risks. The first one is liquidation, which is definitely a real risk if the token you're borrowing is not a stable coin. The second risk is that probably a lot of other people will do the same thing, right? And that will potentially drive up the interest rates on the platform where you're borrowing it from. So if there's a low interest rate initially to borrow it, you could suddenly see the interest rate spike. And so then you might be doing a negative carry trade if it goes up really high. So that's probably the other thing to watch out for there. But it is definitely can be very lucrative to make that trade as well. The main risk is liquidation. And so if you have a very highly collateralized position, it obviously reduces the risk, but you have to manage that position carefully.
Is there anywhere that lets you bet on interest rates on these markets?
Yeah, I mean, projects like Pendle, right? Effectively let you trade the interests. So yeah, that's one way to do it. I'm not sure to what extent they support very like long tail assets. I think maybe it's primarily like the biggest platforms and like Aave and Compound and so on. But I could be wrong. I can't connect my wallet here now, but that's one project to look at.
The wallet's too big; it'll break the system.
Yeah.
No, I think there's another one that I got introduced to recently, and I didn't really recognize the value of it as much until we just kind of talked it out loud here. But I think it's called Strips.finance. I don't think they've launched yet.
Strips.finance?
Yeah. And it is, if you scroll up.
Look at that. Some smart money backers, at least.
That's true. If you scroll up to the top, interest rates trading. So I guess like, yeah, as we're just thinking out loud here, like if you see a farm going on where people are borrowing, just to use the same example, a bunch of Maker to yield farm with, maybe you could bet on the interest rate of Maker just to stay like completely separated from the farm, but still get exposure to that event or like bet on it somehow.
Yeah.
It's all a big game.
It is, yeah.
This whole market is a big game.
But it is pretty cool though, because these projects they sort of create markets for everything. And if you have markets for everything, that's good because information can flow more efficiently. And yeah, in general, like if it can be a market, it should be a market, right? Maybe that's not a good rule, but like that's one way to think about it.
You're right, but I mean, I think these things are they start as like games almost, but then as they scale
True.
up,
And then
they
some of them become like DeFi primitives and they actually become very useful. And so sometimes there's maybe a very complex financial product that seems too abstract to be useful, but then it finds a use and it turns out it's actually very powerful. So I think maybe one example is uh, Whiteheart, right? Which is kind of this like options type product made by Molly Wintermuth from
can you pull it
Hedging.
up?
Yeah, what is it? Whiteheart.finance. So to me, this was like, this is kind of abstract, right? But they phrased it in terms of the application. And the application was like, hey, if you want to be a liquidity provider for like, let's say ETH versus US dollar and get yields on that, you can basically buy an option through this platform, which like hedges the impermanent loss. So you kind of lock in the price. Um, and that's very useful, right? Because if you want to be a liquidity provider, but you're worried about impermanent loss, you can then basically buy insurance through this platform, right? So I haven't looked at this project in a while, so yeah, don't want to talk too much about it because I don't know what the status is right now. But there's a lot of projects out there that seemingly do kind of abstract things, but they actually have pretty useful applications.
Did you get paid to say that?
I did not. I don't
Kidding.
hold any white tokens. I did hold white tokens, and I did make some money off it. But yeah, I'm not currently holding any white tokens, and I did not get paid.
All right, should we dive
Okay.
into Thorchain here?
Yeah, I think Thorchain. Maybe do you want to give people like an overview of Thorchain? Because I know it's a big project, and I think you aped into that relatively early. Did you not?
Uh, yes.
And so maybe
But
you know something about it, or did you just ape?
I know a bit about it, but not like I won't go into too deep details. But basically, it's a like what they've built is a cross-chain DEX. I think would
Okay.
probably be the simplest explanation. But letting you trade native assets for each other. So, for example, like on Uniswap, you can trade BTC for ETH, but you have to do like WBTC or REN BTC. Like you need to do some sort of wrapped version of it,
Mm.
ERC20 version of BTC on Thorchain. So if you go to like thorswap.finance, for example, and then click launch app. So here is like the interface for Thorchain, or sorry, for I guess like one of these projects that was built on Thorchain. And so you can see like BTC native. So you can, just like on Uniswap, you can provide liquidity with assets. You can do the same here with Bitcoin, but you can do it with native Bitcoin or
Mm.
native ETH or native BNB, like on their own chains. And yeah, so it's useful because you don't need to like bridge across different chains. All of it is done directly to your wallets. So actually yesterday, for our alpha tier users, we brought in the team from XDeFi, which is a
Mm.
new wallet that is working on multiple chains. I hope they don't mind me sharing, but if you use the code Nansen with a capital N, and like capital NANSEN when signing up, I think you can get through to their beta.
Alpha
I,
League.
that is an alpha leak. That was just for our alpha tier customers, but now it's for everyone apparently. So,
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you got to
oops,
get
if I wasn't supposed to share, but yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
If we break the servers, I don't think we have that many viewers, but let's see. Um, so what can we see here? Like if we look at Wallet Profiler, right? And uh, this is the router, right? So this basically is where the funds go from Ethereum, I imagine. And so you can, for example, see the inflows of like incoming tokens that go through that router. So USDC is the biggest asset, USDT is the other one, Sushi is another one, and then we have like a collapsed category of other tokens: Alchemix, Dodo, YFI, KYL. I don't know what that is actually. And then some outgoing tokens, which you would imagine would be more or less the same, although you see Rune here. So maybe people basically swapping from other chains to get Rune tokens on Ethereum. And so this is one thing I like about these wallet profiler dashboards, that they can kind of like, they give you a lot of information. Like we didn't obviously make a Thor swap dashboard yet, but you can use these almost like dashboard Legos to get some insights right away. And so this is the flow of tokens in and out of this router. What about Ether? So you see one massive address depositing Ether here. Maybe we can click through on that and see what it is. And then it's actually a lot of unlabeled addresses receiving Ether. Interesting. I wonder, I know, when there are hacks and people try to really go anonymous, they often use cross-chain methods because it's a bit harder to trace. Do you have any idea if people actually use something like Thor swap for that? Like if you've done a hack, or if you're like Plus Token or something, would they use Thor swap to
That
sort
is
of
a
wash
great question.
some of the funds?
I don't know if the liquidity was good enough to do a major amount before, but certainly as they keep raising the caps, meaning like allowing more liquidity to be provided on the exchange, it probably could be possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I always found that a bit strange with how people use Ren BTC. Many hackers use that because I asked Ty, the founder of Ren, about this, and he said like it's really easy to trace like if anyone goes from Ethereum to say BTC through Ren BTC, it's really easy to track. And I've looked at the events data myself, and it's so I don't really understand why people do that.
But you can still use tumblers or whatever. Like once you're in BTC, like you can
maybe
wash it.
Yeah,
definitely not financial advice on that one.
Yeah, no, but it's curious, right? Like to understand what methods people use, and also if it can expose you to some risk because you use the same products, right? It's not always clear. Yeah. Anyway, so this was the Thorchain router, so you can have a look at that. Don't think it has any NFTs. That'd be pretty funny if someone sent NFTs to the router, but probably not.
So I think why this router is popping up is there was a vulnerability that was discovered recently, and they patched it up. So I think this has existed before, but it's a hot contract because it was just launched or relaunched V3 of it, and I think it's being audited by Hallborn and Trail of Bits soon. And there is a post-mortem here on Medium. I'm going to share the link in the chat for anyone who's interested.
I'll also show it on the screen here now. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like Thorchain is quite an interesting and powerful concept, but they did a launch recently with Thor Starter, and it was a bit of a cluster. It was a bit of a mess.
Okay.
It was very difficult. So basically, like usually when you're doing a token sale, people just trade like ETH for the asset, for example, or USDT or whatever. They trade like an asset for an asset. Here, the way you bought Thor Starter was you provided liquidity with Rune, and then it would sell part of that to give you X Rune. So instead of buying, you were basically buying by staking immediately. So rather than like having users do two steps where they would buy and then they would maybe stake, like it forced you to stake right away, the two assets.
I see.
So it's kind of a way of like bootstrapping liquidity or like forced bootstrapping liquidity.
But many people didn't understand that that's what they were doing. Or?
No, it just as you were doing it, like it wasn't working. The buttons were not
Ah,
working.
I see. I see. Okay. Okay.
So like for like an hour or something, and like apparently there was an issue with the node. There was like one node that went down or something like that. Anyways, it
Hmm.
just kind of became a messy process. So it did end up kind of working in the end. Thor starter, the token is X Rune, is up massively. So I think most people are kind of comfy with the launch. They did an airdrop. I think I actually haven't checked, but they said they were going to do an airdrop for anyone who spent a bunch of ETH on approving contracts and it didn't go through. So
Mm.
all's well that ends well. But if they do more launches, they definitely have some kinks they need to work out.
Yeah, that's interesting. In the background here, I just moved over to Gas Tracker, one of the dashboards that I like to look at to just kind of get a sense of what's happening on Ethereum. And I guess very often you see the same things, right? Like the spender entities, typically it's like Binance and Coinbase on top, and sometimes you see like Nexo probably doing some internal accounting and shifting funds around. Chainlink, which has this kind of pulse of like updating their oracles. But it's often cool to look at the contracts, so the consumer entities of gas. And I tweeted recently because I found it quite surprising that Uniswap is like always here. Uniswap is always the main driver of gas consumption. But the second one is Axie Infinity. And here, full disclosure here, I'm an investor in Axie Infinity. But I found it pretty interesting that they're the second highest gas consuming entity on Ethereum when they've actually moved to Ronin, which is their own chain. And if you scroll down a bit further, you can see the actual individual addresses. And it's super clear that it's actually people just using the bridge to move funds, I guess, from Ethereum into Ronin and maybe back again, who knows, but probably from Ethereum to Ronin. Um, to the point where like the Ronin bridge is consuming like 4% of all the gas that's being consumed. And this main chain gateway manager as well is consuming around 4%. And that is up, more than 100% week over week. So I found that pretty interesting. And often you can see this stuff kind of mirroring market activity, because obviously if you look at the Axie token, it's like it just has like an infinite pump almost. I mean, 23, this is literally all time high now, right? So it's almost $24. And if you look at the chart, 90 days, I mean, it's pretty hilarious. It was at $3 late June, and now it's at $23. So it's pretty cool when you see these trends, like what's backing this. Well, people are actually using Ronin. They're actually moving funds to and from Ronin to the point where it's the second most used entity after Uniswap. And it's like more than Tether, more than Center, which is the company behind USDC, Wrapped Ether, MetaMask swaps, all this stuff. So yeah, I just found that pretty interesting in the gas activity and how you can get an idea of like what's the organic usage of a certain project on chain, not just is the price pumping or is the token pumping, or do they get lots of shills on Twitter? But here you see actual like organic activity on Ethereum.
So with that in mind, it's also interesting to see optimism there, the third from the bottom in the table above.
This one, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Because I think Uniswap has launched on Optimism.
Yeah.
And
If
not sure
there's a couple ways.
Hmm.
There's I can't remember what his name is on Twitter. Maybe a 0x Osprey or something like that. I'm going off memory here. 0x underscore Osprey. Yeah. L2 Summer. Enjoy. Can you pull him up on Twitter?
Yeah, let's see. 0x Osprey.
Yeah, underscore Osprey.
Osprey. Here we go.
Yeah,
Associated framework.
Yeah,
Cool.
and then you scroll down a bit more.
L2
There,
Summer.
L2 Summer Enjoy. And so if you click on that first one, it auto adds the Optimism network to your MetaMask.
Nice.
I'm not sure where you click to get it to do it.
I don't have MetaMask on this
There you
browser.
go. Okay, and then the next one, when you go over like to that new network, it'll show up at the top there saying Optimism.
Right. Wow, that's cool. Nice. That's exciting. And is this so hopefully it is V3, right? Maybe I should
Maybe
know
both.
that.
I'm not really sure. What do you mean?
Is it V3 or V2? I mean it should be V3.
V3. Right? V3 is the latest one.
Yeah, I know V3 is the latest, but I'm wondering if V3 is the one that was V3 on Optimism. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because the cool thing about V3 is that it's very capital efficient. And so it's perfect for layer twos because you don't need to have tons of capital in order to have good pricing. So it's way more capital efficient. So it's ideal for fragmented ecosystems like layer twos might become. And so this probably means that, and also because it's layer two, it's like a lot cheaper to update your positions as a liquidity provider. So it's just, yeah, I mean, this is really exciting. I want to test it out afterwards.
Cool. Question from the chat. Hey, why is Nansen so expensive? Like 2K a month. I'm a retailer. How can I do on-chain analysis efficient?
So it's not 2K a month for the standard price, right? It's $149 a month. And why is it so expensive? I mean, and I don't mean to sound cheeky, but our customers actually more often ask us why it's so cheap. And the thinking is that the insights you can get out of the platform and the trades you can make, depending on the assets under management that you have, can often make you a lot more money. Of course, that is not a guarantee. Not everyone makes money looking at nonsense charts and making trades based on that. But the way I think about it, you should consider like how big is your crypto portfolio and what percentage would a nonsense subscription be of that portfolio. And, so let's take the, $149 a month, right? If you multiply it up, that's about 1,788 a year. And so that means if you have $100,000 assets under management, you're spending 1.7% on nonsense, which is probably a bit much. Like there's a good chance you could generate returns on it and make that money back and a lot more, but it's still a relatively sizable amount of your portfolio. If you're managing like several 100,000, it becomes a lot easier to justify if you're actually going to actively trade. If you're managing millions or tens of millions, hundreds of millions, or billions of dollars, it can be actually pretty easy to justify that cost. So our alpha subscription is 2,500. And of course, it doesn't make sense really to get that if you have assets under management that are, in the lower end of the scale. But at the same time, like we don't know how much assets under management our customers have. Actually, sometimes we do because they on-chain data and they happen to have public wallets. But most of the time, we don't know that. And so we can't really just price the product based on someone's AUM. The only thing we can do is offer different tiers, and people can join the tiers that they can, get the max value of. So we try to make the lower tier as accessible as possible. But yeah, we in order to have a sustainable business, we need to have revenues. And if we gave away the product for free indefinitely, Nansen as a company would not exist. in a few years unless we did something like advertising. And we don't have any advertising on Nonsen. It's only the data and the insights. So yeah, that's the thinking around why we have the pricing we have.
Yeah, just building on that as well. I think different people justify it in different ways. Some are looking to make money with Nansen, and that's up to you. That's based on your trading style and the opportunities you go after, your risk tolerance, etc. A lot of people also use it to not lose money. So if you're looking at a farm and you're like, this is kind of sketchy, like maybe you check it on Nansen and check who else is in it and get a bit more comfort before going into one of these like high APY farms. So it's hopefully to help you make money, but also to help you not lose money in like a rug pull or something like that. On
Excellent
that
point.
note, there is another question here, which is, what are some red flags to look for in deployer/smart contracts? And they ask on Etherscan, but I'll kind of abstract that out. What are some red flags in general on smart contracts, if you know, or like off the top of your head, if there's anything low hanging fruit?
So I don't. I mean, I know a bit about the Solidity and so on. I've made a few simple smart contracts myself, but I don't want to comment too much on that because I'm not an expert. But there are some general points, like if you see something that's been forked from something else, like if someone cloned the Synthetix contracts or Uniswap contracts, you might want to check that the code is actually identical and that they didn't make any one-line changes that could introduce vulnerabilities. So that's like, and there's a bunch of other things on the code. Definitely a red flag is like if the contract is not verified in the first place on Etherscan, that's a total red flag.
Well, I would caveat and say it's not a red flag, meaning like this is a scam. It's more like they haven't done it yet, and maybe wait until they verify.
It's a red flag in the sense that you should definitely be more cautious and you should definitely know what they're doing before you send any money to it, because literally you have no idea what it does unless you can use a decompiler or something. But yeah, but it's true, like it could just be that it's so early that they haven't put it up yet. But those are some examples. I'm trying to find, maybe there are some contracts here that we could look at. Yeah, these are actually just EOA, so that's less interesting. And hey, maybe this one. First million. Okay, that's something else. Okay. Well, First Million is designed to make as many millionaires as possible. Inspired by Token. Oh man. Did we accidentally shill some complete scam?
That Token was insane. Did you follow that at all?
Yeah, I did, and now I see there's this like clone of it, and it has like 250,000% increase in gas. So maybe someone is like literally aping into this as we speak, and I hope we are not giving anyone ideas to ape into this. So I think I'm just going to close this window.
Avert your eyes, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, yeah, I guess people can make. I mean, you can do this like what do you call them? Left curve bets, or
yeah. We call them bell curve bets in like the
bell curve bets, exactly.
The alpha group. I made curved out of the Token. Unfortunately, I saw it and I was like, no. But like the left curve, and it was like, yeah, this is gonna pump, like for sure. This guy's gonna keep shilling it to his whatever millions of followers. Anyways, I held back, but it's up to yesterday. I think it hit at like $200 or something, and he started like crypto Twitter started shilling it at like not shilling it, but like bringing it to people's attention at like $10-15.
Yeah. Yeah, sketchy. But that's how it is. But to go back to the question, like, what are some red flags? So, there's stuff related to the code, and like, has the code been verified on Etherscan? Then, if there's a specific yield problem, as we've been talking about and showing some examples of, we like to look at which other addresses have put capital into the smart contract. That can sometimes be an indication that, you know, they've done some minimum amount of due diligence on it. Sometimes it could just mean that they have tons of capital and $100,000 for them is peanuts, so they're fine taking that risk. So it's definitely not, you know, always, you know, it's not a guarantee that it's safe or anything like that. But that's information you want to be looking at. And if you see it, like here's this new like yield farm, and it's been live 2 days, and it has 25 different wallets, and you don't see any smart money, you don't see any ENS names, it's totally random. To me, that's a red flag, and I'll probably not look at it anymore. Yeah, what else? Any other things that come to mind for you?
Sorry, I'm just making some swaps in the background here, getting ready for the for the Damien Hirst drop.
Okay, so maybe it's a good time to wrap up, right? Because people might want to ape into this because it starts in less than 4 minutes. Boom.
Not financial advice. Be careful. It's also $2,000 for one of
it's
these.
$2,000,
so.
yeah. So be careful.
Still unclear where it goes, but you know, maybe this countdown timer swaps over to a buy now button shortly.
Yeah, you could buy it on BSC. Probably not. Cool. Should we wrap it up there?
Sorry. Yeah. The one final question here in the chat is hot contracts in the trial version of Nansen?
It is not. Hot contracts is only in the VIP tier.
All right. Well,
but, you know, you could do a VIP tier. So something to consider.
That's true. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you guys as always. And the recording of this video will live on YouTube. We add little timestamps to the videos afterwards. So if you have any sections that you want to go back to rewatch, feel free to check back on that video in the next couple of days, and we'll have those timestamps. Anything else to add, Alex?
Remember to hit that bell subscription or subscribe button.
like and subscribe. The video. What's going on, everybody?
Yeah, our head of marketing said that we need to get better at these call to actions in the video. So, you know, please like the video. It helps other people find it, you know, all that stuff.
Smash it. Smash it. Like. All right.
Smash it.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.